Hey guys, welcome to Treasure Channel. Today I will talk about Amara Raja batteries. Like you know, I will talk about four things. First, I will talk about history, second business, third management, and lastly I will talk about some financials. So first let's talk about the company's history. The company was started in 1985 by Ramchandran N. Gala. After returning from USA at the age of 50, the first company that he started was Amara Raja Power System. In the same year, he started the second company, Amara Raja Batteries, which I am going to discuss about today. Its first unit he set up in Tirupati, a village named Karakambali in Tirupati. After setting up the company go on for a technical collaboration with GNB in 1990s. After technical collaboration, the company thought of expanding its business unit so that it can expand more further. For that, the company went on public and accumulated some of the capital from the public through issuing the shares. After 1991, the company go on for a joint venture with Johnson Control in 1997. Before 1997, the company was making only industrial product, but after 1997, with the joint venture with Johnson Control, the company gave 23% of the company's stake to Johnson Control so that the agreement would run effectively. And after that, the company started manufacturing automotive batteries. After 1997, the company effectively made automotive batteries, and in 2000, the company made its first brand, Amara. In 2004 and 5, Jadeo Gala entered the company and took the company to a next level. In 2007, the company produced its second brand. It made its second brand, Power Zone. From 2008 to 12, the whole world economy was not doing so well. So Excite thought that the recovery of the auto sales would increase after a few years. So Excite halted the expansion program and Amara Raja started expanding its business. And due to that, when the demand for battery started to rise in 2010-11, Excite couldn't able to produce the batteries and can't able to provide the company. That's why Amara started providing the company. And because of that, Amara started capturing the market of Excite. This was the mistake of Excite, due to which Amara started gaining shares of Excite. This was not the only mistake that Excite done. The second mistake was before 5 years back, Excite was not making enough good batteries for the telecom space, and due to that, the company started focusing on only automobile batteries and left the telecom space as what it was. Means the unorganized players were providing batteries to the telecom space. Amara saw this as an opportunity and entered the telecom space. Sooner, the company started with zero, now became 50 to 60% capturing the whole telecom space battery unit. Still today, 55 to 60% of the overall telecom battery business is manufactured by Amara, and this was the second mistake that Excite has done in the last decade. Because of that, Amara gained the whole market. In 2014, Jadeo entered politics. It was not a sudden decision that Jadeo thought of entering the politics. If you check the mother history side of Jadeo, then you could find that her mother Aruna Kumari Gala was the Minister for Geology and Mines in the Andhra Pradesh government, and she is the daughter of former Indian parliamentarian Rajgopal Naidu. And I have taken this data from Wikipedia, you can check it. In 2019, the joint venture between Johnson Control and Amara broke out. It is because Johnson Control sold its power unit to Brookfield, and due to that, the whole shares controlled by Johnson Control were transferred to Brookfield. It was a sudden decision, though the technology provided by Johnson Control to Amara is now overall used up and consumed by Amara. So in 2019, Johnson Control sold its overall shares to Brookfield, and now the company's shareholding pattern after 2018 is decreased from 52% to 28%, 27-28%. You can see clearly in shareholding pattern of the company. After that, in 2012, Andhra Pradesh Pollution Control Board put up a case against the company because the lead in the blood sample of the workers were quite high. Lastly, I will talk about from where the name came. The company's name Amara Raja came from Ramchandran's father and mother. Her mother's name is Amravati, and his father's name is Rajgopal Naidu, and from where the Amara and Raja name came. As you can see clearly, Amara from Amravati and Raja from Rajgopal. So that this name Amara Raja came from. This is the family tree of Amara Raja group family members. This is all about history. Now I will talk about company's business model. Like a manufacturing company, it has one side raw material and the other side the client. First, we will talk about raw material. Raw material, we all know that lead is the major raw material of any battery company which is manufacturing in India, whether it's Exide or Amara. The company imports all the raw material at LME price, London Metal Exchange price, and it is highly dependent on that as compared to Exide, which has two smelter units. And because of that two smelter units, the company's overall dependency on London Metal Exchange is less as compared to Amara. Amara also started focusing on making smelter units. First, let us understand what is a smelter unit. A smelter unit is a place where the old batteries that are already junk or that are not working are brought back to the company through different methods and are then converted into lead. All the wasted material are removed and lead is extracted back from the old battery or used battery. This is all about the raw material. Now I will talk about the product. Talking about the product, we all know two major products of Amaron, Amara Raja. The two major products are Amaron and Power John. What company does other than Exide to sell the product? The company is doing the same thing that Exide is doing for selling the product. Apart from that, the company is doing some franchisee work and opening its own outlet. By this way, the company is focusing more on market. It helps company in getting the feedback directly from the customer and also getting the whole range and getting to a lot of customer, because franchisee is company cannot have to pay all the bills, and because of that the company can reach to a large location. So these are the helpful points that Amara Raja have as compared to Exide. Now talking about the manufacturing unit, Amara Raja has only two manufacturing units. Both are set up in Andhra Pradesh. It has its own merit and demerit. It depends upon how the company utilize it. The demerit, I will talk about first demerit. The demerit is if the client is located in Gujarat, Delhi or Arunachal Pradesh or anywhere other than Andhra Pradesh. If the client is located other than Andhra Pradesh, then the raw material have to be shifted from Arunachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh to that location, whether it's Gujarat, Delhi, Kolkata or anywhere in the world. Most of the clients prefer the company whose product are near to their companies. Like if Tata Motors is making a product in Gujarat, then it will purchase the battery from the company that are located around Gujarat, because it will reduce the cost, it will reduce the time. When the company require the product, it will provide instantly at the moment. So these are the things that are the demerits of putting the company in one location in Andhra Pradesh. The company has one merit point also, because if all the whole unit for manufacturing, setting, lead smelting, if all the things are happening in the one place, means the company has economies of scale. Suppose you make 5 products in 5 different locations, you assemble it in 6th palace. So for that you need 6 manager, and if the same thing happens in one location, you require only 1 manager. So from there we can consider that it is cost effective and economies of scale is there. But if the company manages to provide the product to its client on time, then it is more effective than setting up plant in different location at different range. So it is more effective if the company does it properly. So these are the merits and demerits of setting up a plant in one location and different location. So you have to understand it differently. Now talking about automobile, its product range. First I will talk about automobile. Overall automobile business, the OEM business constitutes about only 10% of the overall revenue, and the aftermarket constitutes around 45% of the overall revenue. So we can clearly see that 55% of the overall revenue comes from automobile division. Now talking about the OEM, from 2012 data, you can see that the company is not much focused about OEM. In overall two-wheeler market, the company has only 10% share. In four-wheeler, it has less than 25% share. But in replacement market, it has around 25% share, and in four-wheeler, it has around 35% share, and it is increasing because it's 2012 data, and the company is heavily expanded from 2012 to 2021. Now talking about the industrial product, like I said earlier, the company's overall revenues, industrial division only constitutes about 45% of the revenue till 1997. Before 1997, company's overall whole of sales was generated through industrial batteries, but now it is more focused on 50% automobile and 50% industrial product. The main industrial products are UPS, telecom, Indian Railway, solar battery, and there are much more. The company's major focus is on telecom. It has captured around 55 to 60% of the overall telecom market battery division and around 35% of the UPS division. So it is the leader in UPS and telecom division. It is all about the company's business model, how company is working. Now talking about the things that you need to keep in mind while evaluating the business. First is that it is dependent on auto industry. You have to understand the OEM and replacement market. You have to understand the electrical vehicle, particularly lithium-ion battery versus lead acid battery. You have to consider about research and development, which company is doing with which company. Now you have to also consider about OEM itself investing in lithium-ion batteries, like Suzuki is setting up a manufacturing unit for lithium batteries in Gujarat. ISRO is selling the technology of lithium-ion battery for 1 crore, which is easily available to many companies and which might create competition. And the environmental concern of lead, which you have to consider about before evaluating the business. Now talking about the efficiency of the business. First, I will talk about operating profit margin. When we talk about operating profit margin, we can clearly see that it is highly dependent on lead price. When the lead price goes up, operating profit goes down. When the lead price goes down, operating profit margin goes up. Overall, we can clearly see that the company is fully dependent on operating profit margin. The operating profit margin is fully dependent on the lead price. You can see from other auto ancillary business that the operating profit margin is around 10 to 12%, but the Amara Raja batteries are around 15%. It is because of the two reasons. First, its focus on replacement market and its focus on industrial segment. Because of that, its operating profit margin is quite higher than other auto ancillary business, and it is not an auto ancillary business directly. Its 50% revenue comes from industrial product. Now we talk about net fixed asset turnover. If you see the data of last 10 years, the net fixed asset turnover of company is continuously in decreasing trend. In 2012 it was around 7 and now it is around 2.5%. And for that we will consider 2 points here. First, the company is not able to use its fixed asset effectively, and second is that company is investing heavily on capex. If you look at the last 10-year data, then you can clearly see that company is investing heavily on capex, and because of the increase in capex, the company's net fixed asset have increased, but the rate at which the capex have increased haven't increased the net sales. So we can say that in future the assets which are utilizing can be useful for generating sales in the future. But before considering that point, we have to first consider the capacity utilization of the company, whether the company is using the whole of the asset effectively or the company is using some part of asset and leaving the other part for the future sales. From some of the data that are available on the internet, I checked that the company's overall capacity utilization is around 90%, means that the company is almost using all the capex. So we can say that from the capex perspective, the company is not able to generate sales from this capex. For generating sales, the company have to invest on other capex. Investing in capex, the company is even not efficient enough to use its capex effectively. Now we will talk about working capital turnover ratio. This will particularly talks about how if company is using its working capital to generate the sales. For now, talking about the inventory days. If you see the inventory days of the company, then you can clearly find out that it was around 60 days before 2016. But after that, the trend has rapidly increased. Means the inventory of the company has increased over the last 5 to 6 years. And I am going to consider 2 points for this. First is that the company is not able to sell the product, and the second is that company is focusing more on replacement market. On reading the annual report, we can clearly see that the market share of Amara Raja in the replacement market is already quite high, and it is stable. But now management is focusing more on OEM market. If a company focuses on OEM, means the inventory must be decreasing because the client orders the product and pay the price at an instant. Because of that, the inventory is not piling up, the product is sold instantly, and it is the reason for that the company focuses more on OEM, but margin is quite low here. From this we can see that if the inventory is increasing, then the company must be focusing on replacement market, but the company is focusing more on OEM. So it is a contradictory point. So we can consider that company is not able to sell the product, whatever is the reason. I'm not you can consider your own point here. After that we will talk about receivable days. Receivable days of Amara Raja is around 45 to 50 days, and it is decreasing. From 2012 to 16 it is around 45 to 50, and now it is decreasing because management is focusing more on OEM. When a company, like I said earlier, when a company is focusing more on OEM, it receives payment more frequently than it is in replacement market. That's what it is visible in receivable days. Now talking about the payable days. The payable days of the company is continuously increasing, and I will consider 2 points for this here. First is that company is not able to pay to its supplier on time, which can't be right because company is growing effectively. And the second point would be that because of the size, the company is ordering more raw material, and because of the trust the company has gained over the time, helped the company from its supplier to get credit preference, and it will consider to be the right point from this perspective because company is quite large, quite trusted, and for that it is getting the credit preference from its supplier. So few of the overall we can consider that company is dependent on raw material. From fixed asset turnover ratio we can see that it is not selling effectively like it sold earlier, like in 2010-11. Overall the inventory is increasing. The management is focusing now more on OEM, but still the inventory is increasing. And receivable days, it is decreasing because of management's focus on OEM. And talking about payable days, the company is getting credit preference from its creditors. Overall, you can clearly assume what you have to. It is all about the business model. Now talking about the management. In the management, firstly I will talk about the shareholding pattern. In 2018, you will see that the shareholding pattern of the company has decreased suddenly from 52% to 28%. You have to consider it that the joint venture between Johnson Control and Amara Raja broke out in 2018, and because of that this thing happened. You just can't consider that the shareholding pattern decrease means it is a bad company, the company sold the share. It is not like that. Johnson Control sold its power division in 2018 to Brookfield, and because of that the whole shareholding, most of the shareholding got transferred to Brookfield. 2% were purchased by Amara Raja, and overall most of the share were transferred to Brookfield, and Brookfield does not have an agreement. That's why it is not considered as a promoter company. So you can see that the shareholding pattern of company is around 20%. I will consider a company good company if the shareholding pattern of the company is management is around 50% plus. So from my perspective, I will consider it not a good plus point. Now talking about remuneration. If you see the data of remuneration, you can clearly see that it is around 13% of the PAT, which is quite high number from my perspective. Now talking about at what rate the sales and profit of the company is increasing, by at what rate the remuneration of the management is increasing. You can clearly see that the sales and profit of the company over the last 10 years have increased 13% CAGR, means compounded per year. And the remuneration is also increased by 13%, means the rate at which the sales and profit are growing is also the rate at which the remuneration of the company is growing. It is still 13% of PAT, which is quite high. Still it is increasing at 13%, which is quite high from my perspective. So these are the 2 points which I consider negative from my perspective. Apart from that, overall I consider it a good company. Now I talk about the succession plan. If you read the 2021 data, you will see that Vikramaditya and Harshvardhan both are in the executive director's post. And I will consider that both either Vikramaditya or Harshvardhan will take over the company after Jaidev Gala left the company. Right now he is working, and I don't consider there is any succession anomaly is there. So I will consider that it's a good succession plan. Management has cleared who is going to be next successor. Now I will talk about cases and scam. I haven't found much significant cases on Google. If you are talking about Andhra Pradesh Pollution Control Board case that happened in 2021 that you already know about, and I have already talked about in the history of the company. You can clearly check this in the Google. Now talking about the lifestyle and mindset, I haven't found so much data so that I can make my judgment. If you found some, then let me know about it in the comment section. Lastly, I will talk about the related party transaction in the management. A large part of CSR is gone to Rajana Trust, which is quite high, and the Rajana Trust is run by the company itself. So I consider that it will create an anomaly. So I will consider it a negative point, though it may not be a negative point, but I will consider it because the company run its own trust. I will consider it a negative point from related party transaction point, though it may not be, depends upon your perspective of thinking. It is all about the management. Now I will talk about some financials. First, I will talk about, can the company go bankrupt in the next 5 to 6 years? I will consider only 2 points here. First, debt, which is negligible, about 0.1% of debt to equity, which is, I will consider no debt company. And talking about competition, the company is gaining share from its competitor like Exide. And talking about lithium and battery, which is the major competitor, we can see in next 5 to 10 years. So I am not going to comment on lithium so we can consider that in the next 5 to 6 years, company is not going to go bankrupt. After that, return on equity. Return on equity of company is around 26%. 10 years back it was around 26%, and now it is 15%. So you can clearly see that it is decreasing, and it has a smooth decrease. Talking about return on capital employed, it is around 41% in 2012, and now it is 22%. You can clearly see that return on equity and return on capital employed both are decreasing. I would suggest you to further investigate the return on equity by DuPont. I would suggest you to do further analysis. Now talking about debt to equity, which is significantly decreasing over time. 10 years back it was around 1, and now it is around 0.1 without diluting any shares. So I would consider that it is a good point that company had made by decreasing its debt from 1 to 0.1. Now talking about margin, I will consider about operating profit margin and net profit margin. Operating profit margin I already talked about. Company is around 15% operating profit margin, and net profit margin is around 9%. Well, when we compare it with Exide, it has around 9% profit margin, but Amara Raja is 9. And you have to differentiate it because Amara Raja's focus is more on replacement market where you can charge more premium, but Exide is more focused on OEM, and because of that it cannot charge more premium on big companies. That's why its net profit margin is less as compared to Amara Raja. Now I'll talk about cash flow, which is quite good as compared to the company because company is approximately generating 5,000 crore of cash over the last 10 years, and it is using 4,000 crore in investing activities and rest 1,000 crore in financing activities. Overall, the 1,000 crore that the company invested in financing activities went on dividend. So you can clearly see that the company that generated the cash is only used for investing and financing activities. You have to further analyze the cash flow for more detailed analysis. Now talking about the working capital. The working capital of the company is slightly positive, and I consider a manufacturing company good if the working capital of the company is positive, because if it is negative, then company have to take debt, short-term debt, which is not good for the company in short term. Lastly, I'll talk about CFO versus PAT. Means if the company is making the profit, can it is able to convert that profit into the cash or not. In the last 10 years, the company has generated a PAT of around 4,500 crore, and company has generated a CFO, means the company reserved the cash in last 10 years of around 5,200 crore. You can clearly see that overall what the profit company got is converted to CFO, and you see this number CFO increased number because of the depreciation which is decreased in PAT while it is added to the CFO. That's why you see such a price difference, value difference of 4,500 and 5,000. Lastly, I will talk about the valuation. I will talk about only two, from PE ratio and discounted cash flow method. From PE ratio, if you calculate the profit of last 10 years, it is averaged around 600 crore, and from that if you calculate the value by giving 20 multiple, it is around 12,000 crore, and if you give a 30 multiple, it is around 18,000 crore. So you can clearly see that the company is trading around 12,000 to 13,000 crore. I won't consider a company from this point because I will consider valuation only for checking if the company is overvalued or not. That's the only point I would consider checking it. So I can clearly see that from PE perspective, the company is in good valuation, and from discounted cash flow method, when I checked, I found that company has invested heavily on capex, and because of that the company's free cash flow is negative from my calculation. The calculation depends upon the type of people and the mentality of the people on which the person is doing the calculation. From my perspective, the free cash flow of the company is negative, and because of that I can't able to calculate the discounted cash flow method valuation. So few people consider growth capex for calculating the discounted cash flow, and few people consider maintenance capex. So it depends upon your psychology which point you want to consider it. This is all about Amara Raja. Hope you liked the video. If you like the video, please like the video and also subscribe the channel. This is all about Amara Raja, and thank you for being with me for the last of the video.